Hey everyone, Billy Amendola here. And again, I'm going to do a little bit something different for this podcast. I'm going to have my good buddy, Liberty DeVitto, who, as many of you know, has been the drummer on every single Billy Joel song that you hear on the radio. I mean, at least 3-4 times a day, right?
Except Piano Man.
Except Piano Man, but you know, who did play drums on Piano Man?
Ronnie Tutt.
Ron Tutt?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So this is a great kickoff now, because this is what I want to do. Me and you, that we spoke about, is we you never know. This might turn into something. You know.
This could be good because
people like us together for some reason. I don't know why.
I don't know why either.
Yeah, they seem to like us together. It's like,
my 5-year-old always says that when she sees a picture of me, she says, "You look like Billy Amendola."
I love you, May. No, but this is a good thing, because what we want to do is we want to talk a little bit about certain drummers that we both admire, of course.
Right.
And let people know, in case they're not familiar, because recently, I mean, we both are big fans of Roger Hawkins, the late
Yes.
great Roger Hawkins, who passed away two years ago. And I mean, his incredible resume, it's just...
His catalog of playing is just immense.
And then what about
Shoals.
Traffic, right? Yeah.
Yes, then he played with Traffic.
Played with Traffic, with Jim Capaldi, and toured with Traffic. So he was one of those guys that went out and played as well as in the studio. And of course, like Liberty said, Muscle Shoals. I mean, he was the drummer in Muscle Shoals and that whole sound. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do what everybody does when they're home, and this is what you should do. Tell Echo or Alexa, or whatever you want to do, to play a song. And these are songs that we think that we liked. I mean, there's so many. So we're just going to randomly, off the top of our heads, think. And today we're going to honor Roger Hawkins. So
This man that I admired, and I had a 74 Bronco, and I used to have a big speaker in the middle of the two bucket seats, and I'd play a tape deck, and I would play all these Aretha Franklin songs and all those Wilson Pickett, all that kind of stuff, not knowing that it was Roger Hawkins playing on those tracks until later on. So, like Hal Blaine,
right.
Roger Hawkins was one of my teachers, unknowingly to me.
Right, because he played he's such a vast amount of songs that he played on. Like, when you turn the dial, it was like every other song in the 70s at one point.
Right.
It was like so much. And that's why we became into songs more than drums, you know, because we always
Yes.
say there's a drum world and then there's the music world. And, you know, we wanted to, growing up, I learned from you, you learned from the people before you. And that's what we wanted. We wanted to be on the radio. We wanted to play on songs on the radio. And then same thing, like Hal, you'll find out, wow, one guy played on these 20, 30 songs that I love.
Yeah, you get disappointed when you find out that Hal Blaine was like 6 of your favorite drummers.
I know. And of course we'll be getting to Hal, but everybody knows Hal, so Hal, you know, we'll get to him eventually. But with Roger, same thing. I didn't realize until I was doing more research that Bob Seger went to Muscle Shoals to record Old Time Rock and Roll. I did not know that. Which is funny, because that was like the anti-disco song at the time.
Right.
But if you listen to it, Roger's playing 4 on the floor, and he's playing the hi-hat, and at certain parts, he's playing 16th. He's playing a disco beat.
Yeah.
So it's ironic. I don't know if that was intentional. I really don't know, because the song it sounds like it's a rock song. So let's listen. Alexa, play Old Time Rock and Roll by Bob Seger. Now, when you're sitting with a band, right, a lot of guys would probably do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's a rock song, so automatically you think it's this, right? But he's playing a disco beat.
Straight four. Straight four on the floor.
Which is kind of ironic, because the song is about not being into disco, getting back into rock and roll. Alexa, off. Yeah, so now talking about old time rock and roll, right? ironically, he's playing the disco beat, and then he goes into that part where he's actually playing the disco beat.
You know, the thing about disco that I love, there's so many drummers that play. Like, I didn't realize that Staying Alive is actually a loop. Somebody, they took a drum track who played drums with the Bee Gees?
Dennis Bryan.
So talk about disco. A lot of people don't know the drummers that played on those great disco records, like Staying Alive. That's such a great groove.
Dennis Bryan.
You know, I think they took a piece of something and sampled it, and it just became.
Carl and Abby, they're engineers. They looped it because it was in the movie that our good buddy Carlos Guzman worked on,
right.
The Bee Gees movie. They looped from a different song because Dennis actually had to go to his mom's funeral. He wasn't back in time, so they actually looped it around. And if you see back in those days, the way they did it, man, with different tape machines, it was like taking up the whole room with the tape just going around in a circle. Genius.
And you know, little bit of trivia. Talk about disco dying and everything like that. Do you know that Saturday Night Fever, what was it called? Saturday Night Fever was the only album that kept The Stranger out of #1.
Really?
We made it to #2, and Saturday Night Fever kept it out.
I did not. I didn't realize that. Wow. See that?
Yeah.
And Billy never gave in, though, and did a disco song like the Stones and Rod Stewart and.
No, he didn't do a disco song, but you know,
he did It's Only Rock and Roll to Me when
yeah,
right after that.
It doesn't matter
which was
what
the
it
new
is.
wave.
It doesn't matter if hot funk, cool punk, even if it's old junk, it's still rock and roll to me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of like old time rock and roll.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So now going back to Roger Hawkins, so you think of a song. What song you like?
Well, my favorite tune that he did was, and the first time I heard it, it was such a syncopated little groove going on, and he used cross stick in it and stuff like that. And the sound of his snare is more like the reggae guys were using that night. It's really live. It's called "I'll Take You There" by the Staple Singers.
Right. Alexa, play "I'll Take You There" by the Staple Singers.
I'll Take You There by the Staple Singers on Amazon Music.
And we just saw Mavis Staples was at the Little Kids Rock.
Yeah.
I mean, what a groove.
It's sick.
And the bass, David Hood, right?
Yeah. And they're locked in there. They don't move.
Nah, rock solid. And listen to the sound of that side stick, right?
Yeah.
I don't know who the engineer is. People should look up who the engineer is. That's good. You know, sometimes it's not easy to get a good cross stick sound. Yeah. Alexa, off. Yeah, so you see, it's like groove.
You know, I didn't know. I found out back in the day that Roger Hawkins also played on Kodachrome by Paul Simon.
Right. And Love Me Like a Rock.
It's another one, yeah.
I know, and people, right, I didn't know that myself until later on.
Yeah, and Kodachrome kind of has that same sounding kind of live drum sound that he has on I'll Take You There.
Alexa, play Kodachrome by Paul Simon.
Here's Kodachrome by Paul Simon on Amazon Music.
I like that hop.
When I think back on all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all. And my life of it.
So he's hitting the rim. He's not even
Yeah,
hitting the
rim
drum.
shot.
You would
Yeah.
think that he's hitting the snare.
No, cross stick again.
And that hop.
There you
I
go.
love that hop.
He keeps it moving.
Yeah. Very cool. Alexa off.
He just keeps it moving with that.
I know. Great grooves. It's like, well, you know, with Billy Joel, I mean, let's face it. Yeah, we say this all the time because we're drummers, but drums make the feel. Drums could make or break the song.
Yeah.
Like in your instance, we know the story, but tell it anyway. Like,
Only
was
the
it-
Good
what
Only the
song-
Good Die Young was gonna. Only the Good Die Young almost died because it was written like a reggae song, which didn't make any sense
right.
at all. And I got mad at Billy, and the story goes that I threw a drumstick at him and said, "I'm not playing reggae. The closest you've ever been to Jamaica was where they changed trains on Long Island at the Jamaica station."
And reggae wasn't as popular
No.
in the 70s.
No.
You know, so, and then you came up.
With the shuffle thing. I actually, because I listened to so many drummers growing up, you know, that's the thing about kids today. They get hooked on one kind of music and that's all they want to play, you know, especially the double bass drum kids. You know, they love the heavy stuff, but there's so much other music you need to listen to. I was listening to Hendrix at the same time I was listening to Roger Hawkins playing with Aretha Franklin.
Right.
And there's a song called Up From the Skies that has that same beginning and is a quick shuffle like that. And when I played the quick shuffle, Billy was like, "Yeah, okay, this feels better." And I think Paul Simon had walked into the studio when we were recording it, and I can remember looking through the glass and Paul going like this, and his belief was that if you get a great groove going from the drummer, the lyrics are going to go over people's heads. You know, like YMCA, the disco song,
Right.
YMCA.
Right.
We know what the song is about.
Right.
But my mother-in-law dances to that song.
Right. Because it's the feel. It gets you up, it gets you moving.
Yeah.
And ballads, like, you know, ballads, my favorite song of yours, of course, you know, is Laura. And that's because it sounds like a John Lennon song. That was, to
Right.
me, Billy trying to be John Lennon. But those Ringo fills, and, you know, and that's like a hug. When the drums give that kind of slow rolls and that feel, to me, that's like the comfort. That's the hug. You know,
Yeah.
that's what makes a ballad.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Yeah, so that and that's the thing. You're right. You're 100% right. People, the younger generation, they need to listen to all different kinds of music. You know, because
Got to.
you know, we did that. So we went across the radio. So you went from one station, you know, the AM at the time too. We even had. So of course all the pop bubblegum stuff was on there, but those were all major hits that are still around today with what we're listening to now. And then you had your FM album cuts, you know, NEW and everything. So we played a little bit of everything.
And don't forget, you had the sauce cooking and your mom listening to Sinatra.
Exactly, exactly. And even though it may not subconsciously, you were still hearing things. And then later on, you're finding out that Steve Gadd played on some Frank Sinatra stuff, and
Right.
you know, major people played on some Frank Sinatra stuff. So
Right. And when you researched, when the Beatles finally came out, and you listened to that first introducing the Beatles and the songs that they were covering, you didn't know that they were covering them at the time, but when you researched and realized that was Black America doing those songs.
Right.
They were just copying Black America.
Right.
And then you went deeper into soul music and R&B music.
I know, and you know what it's like when you're in the studio. Sometimes you'll say, it blew my mind one time. I think it's even in Get Back real quickly. The Fleetwood Mac was popular at the time, and the Beatles were like, let's write a song like Fleetwood Mac. Now, I never think of the Beatles and Fleetwood Mac, you know, but there's so many bands. You go in and you say, oh, I like the feel, or I like this record. Let's write something like that. But then same thing with the Beatles, all that R&B stuff, you know.
When we did the album Innocent Man, we sat with a stack of 45s and played like we would play Under the Boardwalk and things like that to get that whole doom, doom,
Right.
doom, doom. Or like Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons with Uptown
Uptown
Girl.
Girl, that was really, yeah.
We actually listened to those records before we went out to record them.
And of course you had Phil Ramone, one of the greats of all time. So he was going to study that. I mean, we did that even with Butch. You know, we used to go in when we were cutting records, and we used to say, we want to sound like this, you know. And of course, you know, when I interviewed Eddie Kramer, he was like, people used to say that all the time. I want to sound like John Bonham. He was like, well, here's John Bonham's number one. Why don't you just call him and get him? Because, you know, it does come down also to the player as well. But you can, that's what makes it different.
You reference.
Right, you use it as a tool.
Different things.
Right.
You know, me and Doug went in to do a couple of tracks with Bob James, because after The Stranger came out, everybody thought we were the studio guys.
Right,
we were the new guys on the block.
Because you guys did sound like a studio band. Right. If he would have went in, he demanded he wanted his band, so you guys were a band because you were tight and you knew your thing. But if he was just a solo artist, it would have been studio musicians. And I think at one point, a lot of people did think that he was just...
Right, well, Piano Man and Street Life Serenade were done with studio musicians.
Right.
Ronnie Tutt played drums on those 2 albums.
Right.
And then I come along, Phil Ramone is there now. Phil Ramone is used to playing with the studio musicians, Gad and Will
Right,
Lee
and he was
old
doing
Richard
jingles
T.
as well. He knew how to get sounds for
Right,
commercials.
so he knew all about that. So he knew how to take our energy, keep it high, but make it into a studio thing. He told me, the best advice he ever told me was, when we first did Moving Out, Billy wanted it to go, rum, bum, da da da, da da da. Phil came to the front of the drum, stood in front of me and goes, nope, don't do that, do this. He said, that's all people want to hear.
There you go. Setting it up.
So I get into the studio to do these tracks with Bob James, jazzy now, you know, and he hands me sheet music, and I panic. Like, I go to Doug, what am I going to do? What do I do? And Doug looks at it, because he can read music, and he goes, oh, it's not that hard, just watch me. And I was able to just watch Doug, and he would tell me what was coming up next and what to do, and then we got to do the tracks.
That's great. And we all know education is important, but it's according to your teacher, which you know firsthand because your teacher told you you'll never play the drums.
That's
because
right.
you sucked. Which is something that a teacher, you don't discourage somebody like that.
Right.
You know? And you know, in school, even in regular school, you know, if you like your teacher, you like that class. If you're having a problem with your teacher, or your teacher's picking on you, and you just, you know, and then when you're growing up, you don't realize, well, they're the ones who are screwed up, not me.
Right, exactly.
You know, and you think it's you, and then your parents are saying, no, you got to listen to your teacher. You know, so it's the same thing with drum lessons. You got to find the right teacher that you're comfortable with, because I'm not one myself. You know, I took lessons, I learned how to read all the basics and everything, but I wasn't going to be that kind of drummer. You know, I knew I wasn't going to be. Now, if you want to be that kind of drummer, you know, you want to play in a Broadway pit, or you want to do jingles at the time, or you're doing something, movie scores. Even now, I think that's the only time you still have to really read music.
See, I think if I had known someone like a Dom Famularo when I was a kid and first started, maybe I would have been a different drummer, like knew how to read and stuff like that, because he makes you feel relaxed. He inspires you. He gives you confidence.
Right.
Where the guy when I went to school, and he said, "Put the sticks down, DeVitto, and you never do anything with a drum." It's like, you know what I want to do to him now? I got you nothing.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
So, you know, getting back to Roger Hawkins, that's how I learned, by listening, because I feel that when you learn how to read and you're taking lessons and stuff, the next thing you need to do is to listen. You need to listen to music. I remember Bernard Purdy. I came around a corner once, and when I first met him, and he's playing the Purdy Shuffle. And I said, oh my God, how do you do that? And he just looked at me and said, watch me. Just watch me.
Yep. You can't.
So great.
Yeah. And of course, I've said it a million times, I took lessons off of Bernard when I was 17. And I used to get annoyed because he used to talk more than he used to play. But I didn't realize till later on that what he was teaching me, he didn't have to, you know, and I'm like that now. If somebody comes to me, I want to give them advice on how to better themselves.
Right.
They don't need me to say, well, 2 times with this hand, 1 time with this foot, do this. You know, they already know how to play. Right. They just need guidance, and they need to hear stories so that you don't think you're crazy. Like when Bernard, those stories that he told me about being in the studio and everything, that's gold. You know, that was gold, and I didn't get it right away. I was like, and then people used to complain about Joe Morello. That used to go to Joe Morello.
Right.
Because Joe used to come to the office all the time, and tell stories, but we used to love it, but we weren't paying them. Now people used to go to lessons and pay them a fortune, travel from all over. They used to walk out there and go, I play drums for like 4 minutes and I listen to a story for an hour. But you don't realize it's life experiences
Right.
and you're learning.
Right.
So that's where education, there's a different way. And nowadays, of course, with YouTube and all of that, there's no excuse because you can learn everything and anything.
People say that the guy that plays with Billy now, he plays the garden with him and everything like that. He's a great drummer. What's his name?
Chuck Burgee.
Thank you, Chuck Burgee. He's a great drummer. And people say, yeah, he's a great drummer, but he's not like you. He's not you. Yeah, that's exactly it. He's not me.
Right.
He's a great drummer, but
Right.
he's not me.
Right.
Don't look for me in him.
Right. You can't, and it's not fair to him either because he knows he's playing your parts.
Right.
And he can't stray too far from those parts because,
Right.
let's face it, not to blow smoke up your ass, but a lot of people came to see you
Right.
after they saw you once or twice with Billy. You got your own fans. So to this day, people, still talk about you with Billy, for that reason, because every song you hear on the radio, those
Right.
parts are they're not just slapped together. You didn't just go in there and play the first thing that
No.
came into your head.
No.
Those are thought out parts.
No.
And that's from the education that you had.
Exactly, and it's how I grew up. It's things I ate, my family life. There's tons of Beatle cover bands. Tons.
Right.
Nobody plays it like Ringo.
Right.
Nobody.
Right. So same thing with Chuck. Not to take anything away from Chuck. He's
No.
he's doing his job, but he's not going to be you. And it's not
No.
you. It's not your heartbeat. It's not your parts. That's what makes those songs. It's your parts.
Right. The parts and how I approach them.
Right.
Just like there would have been no Muscle Shoals if those same white guys
Right.
that when Aretha Franklin walked in was shocked that they were white
Right.
played the way they played. That's how they played.
Yep.
That's the only way they knew how to play.
Alexa, play "Chain of Fools" by Aretha Franklin. Roger Hawkins drums.
Fools by Aretha Franklin on Amazon Music.
And our good friend Christine Ullman, who sings this unbelievably. And Christine is instrumental in us being friends with Brenda and,
Yep.
and Roger. And me and you got to play this together, double drums at Bernard's wedding, at Bernard Purdy's wedding. I mean, listen to that.
So great.
Push it. See how it's like pushing?
Yeah.
Unbelievable rhythm section.
And now this coming up is a drum fill.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be something spectacular. This is a drum fill. There you go.
Right into the part. Unbelievable. Alexa, off. And of course, Respect. He played on Respect.
He played on so many. We could be here for hours
I know, but we
just talking about what he played on.
I know, and I'm looking at the list here. Wilson Pickett, "Hey Jude," which Alexa, play Wilson Pickett, "Hey Jude." I don't think I don't remember it. Do you?
Jude
Yeah,
by Wilson
great.
Pickett on Amazon Music.
Hey Jude, don't make it bad.
side stick again.
What he's playing on the bass drum is very traffic-y.
Make it better. Remember to let it
Yeah, if Jim Capaldi
Yeah.
was singing this, or Stevie Winwood, this
Yeah.
would sound like Traffic. And the side stick again.
Now he's on the snare now.
Now he's on the snare. Yeah.
You were made to go out and get her.
You notice how the whole track is a little bit lower because they haven't remastered this.
Right.
Brought those drums out. Pick another song.
When a Man Loves a Woman. Come
When
on.
a Man Loves a Woman. There you go, Percy Sledge. Alexa, play Percy Sledge, "When a Man Loves a Woman."
Here's When a Man Loves a Woman by Percy Sledge on Amazon Music.
Procol Harum. Right? Just reminded me of Procol Harum. And he comes right in with this. So he doesn't. It's like this song. He came like right in.
That whole like.
Yeah.
It's almost sad.
This almost sounds like Traffic.
Yeah, it's almost sad. The song, like I feel bad for the guy because
Yeah.
he can't take it. He just loves.
He
this
live
person.
out in the rain.
Yeah. It's like so great. Gives up all his possessions.
Well, that could happen in a lot of ways. Alexa, off.
Do you know that Jim Gordon played on Apache? The song that the rappers say ignited rap music?
Really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that. And I heard that he played on Grazing in the Grass.
Great groove.
I mean, and of course, you know, he was on All Things Must Pass, and he was in Derek and the Dominoes. I mean, that band with Bobby Whitlock and Eric and Carl Rattle and
Amazing.
Jim
And
Gordon.
then he played with Traffic too.
And then he played with Traffic too. I mean, it's an unfortunate story about Jim Gordon, but he'll be one of the guys that we talk about because no matter how tragic his life was and you know what he did, as far as him as a drummer, you can't ever take that away from him.
Right.
You know.
Right. I mean,
he was an incredible drummer, and Hal groomed him, and you know that's why Hal was so heartbroken. You know,
Yeah.
over what happened, and we don't want to get into that part of it, but yeah, there's so many guys that we could cover, and we'll be back. So I thank you.
and I thank you.
And what do you want to tell anybody? You got any advice for like what to have for dinner or something tonight? Or?
Yeah. Well, have some meatballs and macaroni before you play scenes from an Italian restaurant.
And learn that song because there's some great drumming on that. Actually, believe it or not, you may not want to play some Billy Joel stuff because, you know, some people think Billy Joel is like, you know, he wasn't a rocker. But those are great songs. Billy's a great songwriter. But try to play Just the Way You Are. And try to play it the right way and see if you can play it because I don't know anybody that gets up, and you do this in your clinics.
yeah.
You bring people up and say, you know, play this. And very rarely does anybody ever play it
No.
the way you play it.
My favorite is the heavy metal drummers when they try to play it. Because it's like they can go double bass and then play Just the Way You Are.
Exactly.
can't.
Exactly. Well, Billy Amendola here with Liberty DeVitto.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.